So I do think that we're going to see some downside in Bitcoin here, and we've already seen a little bit of a pullback off the 25,000 marker. But let's take a look at the chart and see what we have in store here. So if we look at the chart of Bitcoin, we can see that the recent highs mirror the high pivot from the August period, right? So it makes a lot of sense why that was going to be a pivot resistance point. And so what we can do is we can basically take a trend line, put it right at that high, and it's the highest point going back to when we made the cycle lows on Bitcoin here, and that's where we stopped out. Now what we're seeing here is actually a little bit of a channel being developed, and again, channels are really handy for kind of giving us highs and lows. So what we can do is we can connect these lows here, and we drag that trend line up, and then we notice that that matches the highs on Bitcoin as well, from here to right here. So what this tells me is that you have a lot of resistance around 25,000, 25,300, but then your technical support is around 22,300. So my guess is we'll retest 22,300. The big question then becomes, do we break that level? I am in the camp that eventually we do break that level and we trade back to about the 18,400 level, which was the midpoint here of this kind of W pattern bottom. So again, I am in the camp that we will see some trouble for the economy here over the next, at least in Bitcoin and the stock market, the next few months, I do think a retest of the October lows, which then brings Bitcoin back to about 18,400. The social media in the world has really brought to the forefront. And that's why you see this under 40 crowd, right? Once you get to the 50s and the 60-year-olds, it's not quite as influenced by social media. But there's so much on social media about the demise of fiat currencies, which rightly so. I mean, when you see what the governments are doing around the globe, but it is really pushing younger investors to say, listen, I don't know about stocks. Is it a rigged game? Where is it not rigged? Well, right now the feeling is that it's more these cryptocurrencies, and the investing class of this new generation is absolutely looking at this as a new place to put money. I think that's what we're watching here, right? So you're absolutely correct, is that you're getting this consolidation in the charts, and that does seem to be a pivot point. And the reason it's a pivot point is that if we look at the daily chart, and I can throw my chart up again here to take a look, is we clearly see that this area here, that first kind of little topping area, that's right at 23.8. And so the idea here is that if you can recapture that high, it starts to tip the scales towards the more bullish side. Now, again, if we put that trend line in here, right at 23.8, you can see right now we are just below it, but you could be putting in a little consolidation that could be setting up for another move to the upside. So this is kind of one of those scenarios where as a trader, I sit back and I watch, because I'm not good enough to kind of determine which direction it's going to go, but it will be interesting. And I agree that if we get back above 23.8 and it can stay there, let's first say for 24 hours, it then increases the probability of us making a move up again and retesting the 25,000 level. Now, if we can't get above 23.8, it goes to the scenario that I just talked about prior, which is where you have to start looking at this 22,300 area on the chart. Yeah, so at least in the short term, we're kind of stuck in the same kind of parallel channel that we're seeing in the Bitcoin chart. And what I mean by that is if we kind of draw a trend line like this, we can bring this down here as well and notice that we're trending sideways to slightly up. Now, the one thing I think is a positive here in the near term, and this is just talking over the next few days to a week or so, is that we had this strong move up where we tested the high, and now you are consolidating. So there is a chance that we could make another attempt, just like with Bitcoin, at the recent highs. If we do that and we can puncture it, you then have the possibility of going up and retesting that 2,000 level. Now, interestingly enough, the 2,000 level was the highest point on Ethereum since the lows were put in, right? And that's going back to basically August of 2022. Interestingly enough, Bitcoin has already tested that high from that point. Now, granted, Ethereum made a much bigger percentage move, but it'd be interesting to see if Ethereum still needs to test that level before there's any chance of a corrective move, since Bitcoin already did do it. So it is something I'm watching. I would be, based on the current chart in the very near term, I would be slightly bullish on Ethereum here just over the next few days. I think again with crypto, the key is this is right. The further away from FTX we get, less there's new FTX scenarios, right? Where you scare the market and you worry, people start worrying about, their money and their exchange accounts and so forth. I think the further away we get, the better it is for crypto, right? Now the big headwind is going to be, when are we going to get the judge's decision on Ripple? When are we going to get the regulation on crypto and find out exactly what it is? I mean, that's kind of the dark gray area here in the cryptocurrency markets. But I think investors are gaining, at least the retail crowd is gaining more and more stamina to be back in this market after they really got scared when FTX collapsed. I think right around that bounce, the bounce with anger is kind of where I'm leaning towards where we are. That kind of orangish, yellow, or
Yeah.
yep, exactly right there. So I still think it's going to fade, and I'm still in the camp that as of now, I haven't seen enough signals to make a call that the lows are in. But again,
Hmm.
when you're trading at 16, 15,000, I don't think there's that much more to go to the downside. I mean, maybe 12 to 13, maybe worst case scenario 9, but for sure we're in that anger area, right? I mean, I think FTX really was one of those scenarios where investors were like, what the heck? This is messed up that people are, basically lying to our face and just taking money and running. So I do think that we're close. I still think it could take another 6 to 12 months for it to bottom out, but I think that again the downside is somewhat limited when you look at the bigger move from 69,000 all the way down to 15.7 or so.